Welcome clients and guests to my YouTube channel. I'm Jason Cerro and I'm a licensed professional counselor. My videos are designed to educate and empower you to make informed decisions about your mental health. If you want to watch my latest videos, subscribe and be sure to hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. If you happen to like this video or learn something, be sure to give it a thumbs up because it really helps the channel. There's a lot of grief and loss happening today, and it's not in the traditional context in which we mostly would think of when we refer to grief and its stages. I'm speaking in regard to my observations concerning children, teens, and most notably, young adults. The taping of this video is October of 2020, 9 months after the world shut down suddenly and in unprecedented fashion. The world we once knew became a thing of the past as we were thrusted into a new world of unfamiliarity, chaos, and uncertainty. This video will bring us closer and more familiar with the stages of grief and how it is whipping through some of the youth of our country and causing serious effects on their mental health. Anxiety and depression have always been conditions to be aware of and managed, but this deep sense of loss that our young people are experiencing must be better acknowledged and validated to mitigate the damage. This is not to solely suggest that it's just younger people dealing with these problems, as everyone is dealing with these issues, but that the focus of this video is about recognizing and assisting younger generations. It is also important to not dismiss the notion that for a certain percentage of the population, those individuals are thriving as they are learning new things about themselves, how the world works, and what is working for them. In its most traditional sense, the stages of grief are explored mostly when someone experiences a death in the family or someone close to them dies. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross originally developed the 5 stages of grief to help her patients deal with their terminal illnesses. Incidentally, it also became a model used for dealing with the process of death. Here are the 5 stages of grief, and we will take a closer look at each stage and apply it to what's happening today. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. As you can see in the graphic, each stage has subcategories that provide depth so that we can expand to more specific and relatable experiences. As we start with denial, it can include shock and confusion. Students of all ages were going to school normally one day in March, and the very next day, with little to no warning, they were told to stay home and basically shut everything down. Wait, what? It's March. I've been going to school since September, which is about 7 months, expecting the school year to end in May or June, and now you're telling me I'm completely turning off my whole life as I know it? Well, what do I do now? The denial, shock, and refusal to accept the crisis can linger for months for some, really causing some mood disturbances and in some cases resulting in severe anxiety, stress, and panic attacks. Most of us like predictability in our lives, and this shattered much of our reality with little time and inconsistent and unstable information to go on. For those who have a difficult time transitioning from one thing to the next or difficulty with change, this hits those individuals especially hard as they operate more on momentum and predictability. During the first 2 months of the pandemic, I started to see the merging of the anger and bargaining stages form. Students were frustrated and annoyed with the lack of understanding of what COVID-19 actually was, how it was transmitted, and what health effects it would cause. They were frustrated with the new navigation of technology for their academics, unsure of the expectations, and encountered communication and interaction difficulties with their parents, as parents across the world were now being assigned as their in-home teachers. There is also what appears to be either aggressive or passive-aggressive anger being expressed. Examples of aggressive anger include arguments or fights with family members over what is acceptable and unacceptable behaviors during the pandemic. Because COVID affects everyone in different ways and can be fatal for some, we are seeing a big conflict of interest within the household. There can be as many as 3 generations in one household, all having different views on the virus and how it impacts their daily movements. Behaviors affect not only the individual, but the other family members as well. For example, if a teenager minimizes the virus, they may engage in less social distancing and put health-compromised or older family members at greater risk of contracting the virus. Naturally, there will be conflict if there is little to no problem-solving, negotiation, and behavior modification. Passive-aggressive anger gets expressed through various channels, but the most common forms I'm seeing are when someone is using avoidance tactics by using ambiguous language, dodging direct questions when being called out by someone, making excuses or bringing up irrelevant information, using sarcasm, and seething in silence. I believe there are many solutions to the anger issue, but I like to resort to a need-based, sacrificing/negotiating system. In healthy families, the needs of all members are expressed clearly to each other, and depending on the circumstances of the needs, they are negotiated and sometimes sacrificed, which can either be a complete sacrifice or a temporary one. For example, the teenager in this situation is expressing maybe a social need. They want to spend time in person with a close friend or two, and is willing to negotiate the terms of that interaction. They would agree to certain parameters of the interaction, like keeping their distance, using masks, and using hand sanitizer. While many of us have an immediate knee-jerk reaction of, "My kid would never do that," or "I can't rely on my teen to hold up their end of the bargain," you are essentially saying we have a trust issue here. And that could be either jump to conclusions without any real evidence on your part, or there is an underlying trust issue between family members where we don't do what we say we are going to do. Oftentimes, kids will emulate their parents' tendencies, so as a parent, if you're not reliable or consistent with your messages and follow-through, it is certainly possible you have a double standard. Expect your child to do what you don't do, and now have lost trust from your child. And you may even get enraged if they ever call you out on it. Obviously, that reaction could possibly push you and your child further away from each other. These dynamics are very powerful. It can have a long-term consequence from a healthy interaction standpoint between family members. Cleaning our own closet first can be a great step in changing the unproductive cycle between us and a loved one. We gain better credibility when we are following through on what we verbalize. As Dr. Kubler-Ross suggested in her literature, the stages of grief are not linear and are not the same for everyone, as their experiences differ. In fact, you can be in multiple stages concurrently. Confusion, for example, a subcategory of denial, has remained throughout for some. I saw this particularly when our young people were told new and often conflicting information about the virus. This was happening daily and was extremely difficult for some to keep up. In the traditional context, bargaining is where the individual is clinging to the threads of hope, however thin that fabric may actually be. Breakthrough treatments in medicine or intervention by some force are seen as a source of a temporary suspension of the inevitable outcome. Bringing this concept to today's environment, this is where we will make statements like, "I can't wait until the vaccine comes out," or "everything will hopefully go back to normal when the vaccine is here." This is a rejection of the current climate and what is taking place, where most wear masks in the belief that "I can't do anything anymore like I used to" repeat over and over in some minds. The evidence supporting that you can do most things you were doing before the virus is not really considered. It's the adaptation of the previous activities that is rejected because it's not the same, it's unfamiliar, or just simply too uncomfortable. A healthy thought adaptation that includes "circumstances have changed and I must change to the circumstance" is where we can break that stuck feeling. Again, it's an understandable difficulty to shift when we program much of our lives to operate on autopilot and predictability. The quicker we realize and accept change happens out of our control, the more we can actually control within the new set of circumstances and adjust our expectations to feel less frustration and anxiety. It can really feel like we're moving towards something we may want, as opposed to feeling like we're being moved in a direction by someone or something else. Dr. Kubler-Ross referred to the fourth stage as depression. This is the stage where the reality of the difficult event has really hit home and there is nothing that can be undone. Sadness and hopelessness are often experienced, and a person's whole existence can come into question when someone enters this stage. Some go numb, lose complete sense of time, routines are disrupted, and for many, their purpose in life is shattered. The pain is unbearable. Today's environment of depression can be looked at through a couple of lenses. First, for young people, they have typically, and not always, but have experienced less periods of time like this. For many, it's their first exposure to something so life-altering. Consequently, they have nothing similar they've experienced that they can fall back on to help them through this time. They are, in essence, relying on others to show them some of the ways to handle this. Combined with the fact that multiple generations have not experienced anything like this ever, the older generations are somewhat not even able to guide our younger people. Not being able to experience your senior prom, your senior class trip, or having your sports or activities canceled, when some of us spend our whole lives looking forward to these moments, can be incredibly disappointing and depressing. I remember being told by someone years ago that in a lifetime, you can count the most important moments in your life on one hand. For many, one of those moments may have been what was taken away from them. While many of us can point to more than 5 momentous events in our lives, I'm simply trying to emphasize that a person's experience is relative to their age and set of circumstances that have existed, and to not minimize or invalidate our young people's feelings regarding their loss. Conversely, I was privileged to witness tremendous efforts made by our parents, families, school staff, and communities as a whole make the best out of incredibly unfortunate circumstances. The final stage is acceptance. Acceptance looks at the new reality, does not ignore the loss, and embraces responsibility. The new reality is the acceptance of what exists in the current environment. It is about seeing how the new reality is impacting a person's life in the present form and its effect on relationships, whether that be work and school related, as well as familial and socially. We do not ignore or forget about the loss, but we start to come to grips with the pros and cons of the current state of circumstances. We still reflect on the old times with positive regard and not reject or deny painful feelings and memories if they happen concurrently. We embrace responsibility by identifying the new priorities and action steps required to attain certain achievements and necessities. Those of us who struggle with change and transitions and who experience the 4 seasons can look to weather as a guide when dealing with current events. Most of us adapt when the seasons change. We wear warmer clothes, winterize our pools, put the outdoor furniture away, put the soccer balls away, and take out the snowboards and skis. Take out our ice skates and light up the fireplaces while sipping our hot chocolate and marshmallows. Well, at least I do. Yes, these transitions are predictable and we have time to adjust to them. However, thinking that events are going to happen whether we like them or not allows us to let go of unproductive thinking and can be a huge relief when the unexpected happens. That doesn't mean we try to anticipate the unexpected, as that can turn into obsessive thinking and anxiety. It also means we have a huge control issue we may want to look more closely into. In summary, let's expect the unexpected and develop more effective strategies on how to deal with these events going forward. Most say we have to be able to adjust and adapt to change, and that is absolutely true. But to change nearly 100% of our lives in such a short amount of time is probably a little unrealistic and requires patience and togetherness within our families and communities. If you found this video useful, please like it and share it to someone you believe it may help. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to put the notification bell on so you know exactly when my next video comes out. Thank you for watching, and as always, be where you are, be resilient.